When you think of the most powerful cards in Commander, what do you think of? Well sure, most default to Crater Hoof Behemoth, which single-handedly wins games, Cyclonic Rift, which single-handedly wins games, or Protean Hulk, which single-handedly wins games. But let me introduce you to another contender, who may not single-handedly win games, but it can cripple a multitude of strategies. Both Grave Pact and Dictative Erebos. While they aren't that powerful in a vacuum, many people hate them for their ability to shut down so many types of strategies. Specifically Voltron strategies and strategies who play big haymaker threats, or strategies that rely on their command. They also have the strength of getting around indestructibility like the pesky Avacyn. So why do I bring this up? Well, did you know that there's actually a Grave Pact in the command zone? Yep, there sure is. Let me introduce you to Savra, Queen of the Golgari. This Ravnica commander has an astoundingly low number of decks on EDH rec, with only 183 decks. This is a 4-mana commander that lets you pay 2 life whenever you sacrifice a black creature to make all your opponents do the same, and whenever you sack a green creature, you can recoup that life loss. This is the classic Aristocrats payoff. So, without further ado, let me show you my Savra Queen of the Golgari deck, and you know the best part? It's only $50 on TCG Player using the optimization. If you feel like it, you can click the link down below to use my TCG Player affiliate link and check out the deck, or just using it to check out the site. So, like any EDH deck, we're gonna need some ramp. We have the classic Farseek, Kodama's Reach, Rampant Growth, Golgari's Signet, Talisman of Resilience, and Harrow to ramp us by lands. We even have Steve as usual. He's great in this deck because he plays with our Sacrifice theme, letting us gain 2 life if we draw him late. We also have a sacrificable Harrow, that being Springbloom Druid, and the phenomenal Aristocrat Ramp and Primal Growth. Alright, now that boring stuff is out of the way, let me get into the real meat of this deck. Let's start off with some of the sacrifice outlets. The real power in this deck is being able to sacrifice any of your creatures at will at any time you want. That's why I run quite a few sack outlets in this deck. Keep in mind, some of them aren't the best due to the budget requirement on this deck. Some good sack outlets on creatures are Bloodflow Connoisseur, Bloodthrone Vampire, Carrion Feeder, Dross Hopper, Phyrexian Plaguelord, and Viscera Seer. All but 2 of these creatures cost 2 or less mana and can let you sacrifice at no cost. We also have the All-Star, Altar of Dementia, being a 2-mana sacrifice outlet that's an artifact that recently just dropped down to $1 because of the Modern Horizons reprint. I also decided to put in Vampiric Rites. Well sure, it isn't the best, it's still a 1-mana sack outlet that provides some card draw, but it does cost mana to sacrifice, which isn't ideal. If you want to upgrade it, you can easily change it to Spawning Pit. If you want to upgrade some of the creature sack outlets, the best choices are probably Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar, and Yahenni, which isn't as vulnerable due to the fact that he can gain Indestructible. You can also try Dark Privilege, which basically lets you regenerate a creature, mainly Savra, until the end of time, but you do need to have her on the battlefield to have the sack outlet online. I don't currently have this in my deck, but it could be fun to try out. So, we have all these ways to sacrifice creatures, but what creatures are we going to sacrifice? This brings us to our next category, Sacrifice Fodder. These are creatures that we don't really care about dying, and we'd be happy to get rid of them to make our opponents get rid of their creatures. The first one is Edric Sorrow Master Breeder. This is basically a Thrill Factory. It makes black Thrills equal to the CMC of a spell whenever we cast one. This can make a ton of tokens that we can sacrifice to make our opponents sack their creatures. If we don't have a sack outlet online, his trigger makes us sacrifice him, not destroy him, so we even get a free sacrifice out of the deal there. Izoni is a great new addition. We're running 36 creatures in the deck, so it won't be hard to get a good number of insects out of the deal. My Toadic Slime may not be black, but we can gain a ton of life off of this. Reassembling Skeleton comes back over and over again, and it's an auto include. Finally, Sengir Autocrat gives us 4 black bodies for just 4 mana, which is an unbelievable number of sacrifices for that low of a mana cost. You may be thinking, all of the sacrifice shenanigans is cool, but why are we doing it in the first place? I mean, there isn't that much of a point doing it if all it does is make our opponents sacrifice their creatures. Well, my response to that is stop being so impatient and let me tell you. Yeah. The main win con is by effects like Blood Artist. We have so many of these in the deck. We have our 2 single target ones being Blood Artist and Falconwrath Noble, and we also have effects that hit all of our opponents, like Zulaport Cutthroat, Vindictive Vampire, Poison Tip Archer, and the brand new, insanely good Sir Conrad the Grim. We also have some mana producers like Pawn of Ulamog, Sifter of Skulls, and the busted Pitiless Plunderer, which makes a treasure token off any creature, even token creature, death. We also have a Butcher of Malakir, acting as another Grave Pact on a creature, Grim Haruspex drawing a ton of cards, and Gate to the Afterlife, letting us loot for days. Next up, we have some cards that are just here for the value. Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, and Plaguecrafter are all basically the same card. It's basically 3 mana and 2 life for our opponents to sacrifice 2 creatures each. Apprentice Necromancer, Blood for Bones, and Dread Return are all great reanimation spells that have something to do with sacrificing. Disciple of Bolas, Smothering Abomination, Death Reap Ritual, and Moldavine Reclamation are all fantastic card draw in this deck, and Innocent Blood is a great sacrifice spell, getting 2 of our opponent's creatures for only 1 mana. Mimic Vat is amazing when we make sure our opponents sacrifice creatures, Evolutionary Leap lets us dig deeper and deeper, and Golgari Charm has a ton of utility. Probably the best card in this deck is Living Death. This card lets us reuse all of our sacrifice triggers. It can also go infinite rather easily if you want to upgrade this deck by putting in Eternal Witness. All you need is a Living Death, Eternal Witness, 5 creatures total, one of them has to be a mana producer like Pitiless Plunderer, and one of them has to be a sack outlet. How this combo works is if you have all of these creatures in your graveyard, you can cast Living Death. This gets back all of your creatures, and including the Eternal Witness. With the Eternal Witness, you get back Living Death. You sacrifice all of those creatures to the sacrifice outlet, letting you get 5 mana off of Pitiless Plunderer. Then, you just rinse and repeat. Throw in a Zulaport Cutthroat effect, and you kill all of your opponents off of this. While this combo may seem rather convoluted, needing us to have 5 creatures, we do have a ton of redundancy in this deck where it matters, so that's always good. This is a great upgrade for the deck if you have an Eternal Witness or you're willing to get one. While all these synergies are great, sometimes we do need to deal with our opponent's threats. For creatures, we have Ravenous Chupacabra, Shriekmaw, and Spark Harvest. For non-creature permanents, we have Acidic Slime, Caustic Caterpillar, Reclamation Sage, and Woodfall Primus. Casualties of War and Beast Within deal with basically whatever you need to, and Casualties of War can get rid of a ton of problematic permanents. A board wipe and a half in this deck is Gaze of Granite and Barter in Blood. Gaze of Granite lets us hit every non-land permanent with a lot of flexibility, and Barter in Blood makes everyone sack 2 creatures, and our opponents sacrifice 4. I would love to have some more board ups in this deck, but most of the ones in black and green are on the pricier side of things. Now, that's it for all the non-lands, let's move on to the land cards. Since this is a 2-color deck, we don't need too much fixing. We have Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Jungle Hollow, and Golgari Route Farm for fixing, Barren Moor and Tranquil Thicket as some cycling lands, and a Grim Backwoods for some sack value on a land. If you want to upgrade the mana base, I would highly recommend High Market and Phyrexian Tower if you can afford them, because stack outlets on lands are insane. So that's all I have for this deck tech today. If you enjoyed, be sure to slap a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't yet. Also, the deck list is in the description, as well as a link to my TCG player, where you can buy this deck list and help us support the channel using my affiliate link. You can also follow my Twitter and Twitch, links are both in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.